Good morning, student. So, as a part of discussion on the various diseases of the liver for the third year MBBS student, today we will discuss and learn about the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I am Dr. Bhupendra Saha, Assistant Professor of Department of Internal Medicine, BP Koirala Institute of Health Sciences, Dharan, Nepal. So, the objectives of today's class are definition of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. We'll discuss on the different spectrum of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. We'll learn what is the pathogenesis and clinical feature of NFALD. In the last part of the presentation, we'll discuss about the investigation and management of the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So what is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? To define non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, you also know it's the fatty liver, it's the deposition of fat in the liver. That is what we call the hepatosteatosis. That is, there is a fat in the liver that is documented by imaging like ultrasound, CT, MRI, transient elastography, like that. Okay. If on doing the ultrasound, if you see the fat, then we can say the fatty liver, and that can be proved or documented even by the biopsy, liver biopsy, which is often not required. Okay, if you see the fat in the liver, that is what we call the fatty liver. But to say the non-alcoholic fatty liver, there should not be the history of significant alcohol consumption. We'll discuss what is significant alcohol consumption. If someone is taking a significant alcohol consumption, we cannot say their diagnosis is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. There should be a history of not consuming the significant alcohol. Okay? And there should not be other concomitant or competing etiology for fatty liver disease. Like there are drugs like methotrexate, which can cause fatty liver disease. There are infection like hepatitis B and C or other autoimmune hepatitis. There should not be there to say it's a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And there should not be no other coexisting cause for the chronic liver disease. In the crux, if you see the fat in the liver either by images or biopsy, and if you do not get any other cause like alcohol, drugs, infection, autoimmune cause, then we can call the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Okay? Okay. Then we have to know one by one. So what is the alcohol consumption that is required for the definition of the NFALD? So how we define the significant alcohol consumption? Significant alcohol consumption is defined by more than 21 standard drink per week for men and more than 14 standard drinks per week for female over a 2-year period preceding the baseline liver histology or liver imaging. So how we calculate the 20 standard drinking? So standard drink, alcohol drink is any drink that contains about 14 gram of pure alcohol. So now 20, so if someone is consuming the 21 standard drinks for male and 14 drinks for the female, then that is significant. And we cannot say that you are suffering from non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Rather than that will become the alcoholic fatty liver disease. So I believe that you know how to calculate the gram and now the standard. Okay? Okay. Now, how big is this problem? What do you think? How big is this problem, NFALD? NFALD is by the fact it is the most common cause of the liver disease in the world. Okay, and the worldwide prevalence of the NFALD is 25.24%. That is diagnosed by images. Mean that if we are 10 people, if we do our ultrasound, then we can see near about 2 to 3% will be suffering from the fatty liver. And if they are not consuming significant alcohol, then we can say it's the non-alcoholic fatty liver. It's a big problem. Therefore, you need to know, because you are going to see so many patients coming with you with the ultrasound report of the fatty liver. Doctor, what to do? Oh my, there is fat in my liver, like that. So you have to know how you are going to approach the patient with fatty liver. Okay. Now, what are the spectrum of fatty liver disease? Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease comprises the non-alcoholic fatty liver only. Okay, non-alcoholic fatty liver, in short of NAFL. Second is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, and third one is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis cirrhosis. So fatty liver means there is only fat, no inflammation at all. There is no ballooning of the hepatocyte. Okay. Steatohepatitis means there is fat and there is inflammation of the liver cells, which can progress to the cirrhosis and hepatocellular carcinoma later on. And NASH cirrhosis means there is evidence of cirrhosis. I know you people have a good understanding about the cirrhosis. It's the formation of the septa and the nodules. If you can see the evidence of the liver inflammation as well as the formation of the nodules and the septa, then we can say there is a NASH cirrhosis. And another spectrum of NAFLD is hepatocellular carcinoma. Okay, so NAFLD has different spectrum: non-alcoholic fatty liver, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, NASH cirrhosis. But I believe most of the patient of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is in the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, fatty liver. And if they do not get treatment, if they do not do exercise, then they can progress to the NASH and ultimately to the NASH cirrhosis. Okay. Okay. So how to define our now overall how to with this background knowledge? Now let us define. So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is not a single disease; it's the spectrum of the disease. It contains of simple fatty liver, steatohepatitis, and the sometimes cirrhosis. The evidence. So what is required? We need to show there is the fat in the liver, that is either by images or biopsy report, and there should be absent of secondary cause like significant alcohol consumption, hepatitis C infection, or some drugs, especially drugs. So okay, drugs which cause the fatty liver, fat accumulation in the liver, and this should be ruled out before labeling someone to have the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Okay. Okay. Now, what is the pathogenesis of NAFLD? A few years back, the pathology that was assumed was two-hit hypothesis. First hit hypothesis, accumulation of fat in the liver, and later on, because of some their inflammatory cytokines, that fatty liver get excited and get stimulated and converted to the steatohepatitis. But nowadays, the proposed theory for NAFLD is multi-hit hypothesis. It's not a single condition. There is multi-hit. So one of the important condition is genetic predisposition. Especially so if someone has the mutation of PNPLA3 or TM6SF2, then they are predisposed to have this condition. Second is adipocyte inflammation. Some of the individual, if someone is obese, then there can be the adipose tissue hypoxia that lead to adipocyte inflammation. Because of adipocyte inflammation, there will be a release of free fatty acid, and ultimately the free fatty acid go to the liver and get accumulated there and cause the fatty liver. The another hit is the insulin resistance. Someone who is diabetes, who is obese, they are having insulin resistance. Because of this phenomena, there is more fat accumulation in the liver. And one of the recent theories, gut dysbiosis. In our gut, there are different types, millions and millions of organisms. But if there is a gut dysbiosis, then what happens? There will be the problem in the tight junction of the epithelium of the intestine, so that there will be translocation of the different toxins, different organisms, and that ultimately cause the different inflammation and steatohepatitis in liver. And third one and last one is the fatty diet. If you consume more amount of fatty diet, then that can also cause the fatty liver in liver. fat accumulation in the liver. So that fat which is accumulated in the liver can be excited or stimulated because of the different inflammatory cytokines, because of insulin resistance, because of gut diet dysbiosis, and that can convert it to the steatohepatitis and ultimately to the cirrhosis. Okay, they're multi-hit. So the pathogenesis is so vast, so complex, and it is out of the topic for today's discussion. And okay, so but just remember there are multiple factors, like someone may be genetically predisposed, someone can, if someone is obese, they can have adipocyte inflammation, if someone is insulin resistant, they are more prone for the NFALD. If someone has a gut dysbiosis, then that can cause the fatty liver and steatohepatitis, like that. Okay, you need to know this thing. What are the risk factors for the fatty livers then? The established risk factor for the fatty liver is obesity. If someone is obese, if someone has the high BMI, they are more prone for the NFALD. If someone has diabetes mellitus, if someone has diabetic dyslipidemia, if someone has metabolic syndrome. In case of female, if someone has the polycystic ovarian syndrome, then they are more prone to for NFALD. So if you see the obese individual, if you see the diabetic individual, then if someone is suffering a metabolic syndrome, then you need to screen for the NFALD by doing the ultrasound. Okay. Other associated condition may be thyroid. Someone has hypothyroidism or someone has the obstructive sleep apnea. Then they are more prone for the NFALD. Okay. Okay. Then what are the clinical feature of the NFALD? What do you think? Most of the time when the patient comes to in our OPD, they do not present with symptom. They present with us with the ultrasound report showing fatty liver. So most of them are asymptomatic, that you need to know, asymptomatic. So if you do not suspect, then it's very difficult to diagnose NFALD. Okay. Then sometimes patient can have the fatigue and abdominal discomfort, but these are highly non-specific symptoms. Okay. And if the patient develop the chronic liver disease or cirrhosis, then they can have the feature of the symptoms of the chronic liver disease. I know people have a good understanding regarding the chronic liver disease. Okay. They can have edema, they can have jaundice, but only in the advanced stage. But in the beginning or in the initial days, initial years, most of them are asymptomatic. To diagnose it, there should be high index of suspicion. Okay. What will be the sign? The common sign is most of the patient, you are not going to get anything. Everything is normal. Maybe you will get the, like, your patient may have the high BMI or obese, like that. But regarding the liver, it may be the normal, and sometimes you will get the hepatomegaly, enlargement in the liver you can get. Okay, but that's why you need to suspect and you need to examine properly. So how we are going to diagnose the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? So the number one diagnostic modality is imaging. So ultrasound, it is one of the cheap tests. We can do the ultrasound with around 600 to 1000 rupees. You can do ultrasound. We can see whether we have a fatty liver in our body or not. Okay. Ultrasonic elastography facilities. This facility may not be available in all the places, but this is available in BPKHS. You can do CT or MRI in some scenario, but it's not often. It is not required oftenly. Okay, so ultrasound, you can do the simple ultrasound and you can see whether there is fatty liver or not. Sometimes if you do the different blood tests, then you can do the assessment of the different biomarkers, like you can do fibro test at a FIB4. It's not just a formula by putting the different parameters over here, and that is out of like this syllabus. And sometimes if you want to do the liver biopsy, or if it is indicated, then you can, after doing the liver biopsy, you may see the evidence of the fatty liver or steatohepatitis. Okay, so from out of all this, if someone asks you what is the test, then ultrasound. Okay, if facility is well, then you can go for the fibro scan, that is ultrasonic elastography. You can go. Okay. So what we are going to see in the ultrasound, when you do the ultrasound, like you can grade the fatty liver 0, 1, 2, 3. 0 is normal parenchymal liver echogenicity. 1 is there is increased liver echogenicity. 2 is increased echogenicity and occurring the echogenic walls of portal venous branches. And 3 is increased echogenicity with loss of contrast between the liver and diaphragm. So by this way, we can grade whether there is a presence of fatty liver or not, and what is the grade of the fatty liver. Okay. So regarding the test like liver imaging, so we know the ultrasound is the first line diagnostic test. It may be the one of the MCQ question for you people. Okay. And the limitations of ultrasound is sometimes if the status is more less than 20% of if individual is like obese and having high very high BMI, then ultrasound may not detect the fatty liver in such individuals. That's why you may need the help of other imaging modalities like CT, MRI, or transient elastography. So transient elastography is a test by which we can detect the level of fibrosis in our liver, which is required to decide for the treatment modalities. And we can do the CT scan and the MRI, but these are quite expensive tests. So this is how this is this is appearance of the transient elastography. It's just like the ultrasound, and this facility is also available at BPKSS. This is how people do the transient elastography, and this is how what is the grading. I'll look at this point. If it is less than 7.2, then there is mild liver fibrosis. It is more than 11 is a severe liver fibrosis to cirrhosis. So by doing this test, we can predict whether there is fibrosis or not. Okay, this is a transient elastography. So what are other non-invasive assessment of advanced fibrosis? Like we can calculate the NFLD fibrosis score, FIFO score, AST type, platelet ratio score. These are the some non-invasive assessment of advanced fibrosis. Okay, whether there is fibrosis or not. If we do not want to do the biopsy, then we have to calculate this scoring score, and you can easily calculate these things. So on the liver biopsy, do we need the liver biopsy? Because there are so many other better non-invasive tests. Often not. We do not require the liver biopsy to diagnose NFLD. But sometimes if it is required, if you are suspecting the NFLD and if there are the concomitant or the competing etiology for the hepatosteatosis, and only then if there is a doubtful diagnosis whether this is NAS or something else, then we can do liver biopsy. Otherwise, not. So how we are going to treat the patient with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? So number one method is weight reduction. You have to reduce your weight, because if you reduce the weight, then there can be regression in the fatty deposition in the liver. So you have to do the exercise and reduce the weight. So how we are going to reduce the weight? So we'll discuss later on. You have to abstain from alcohol, because alcohol is a highly toxic substance for your liver. And if you are already having the fatty liver, if you are going if you are going taking the alcohol, then there will be more problem in your liver. Okay, so please do not take the alcohol if you are having the fatty liver in the fatty liver. And in the drug molecule, we can use vitamin E. We will discuss what is the dose and how long we are supposed to use it in the later slide. And we have to plan. We have to monitor. We cannot sit in the home and like we have to go to the follow up and do the EST and ALT monitoring. Okay. So how we are going to reduce the weight? So we have to focus on protein diet. We have to avoid the processed food like chow and cheese balls. These are the things we have to avoid. And we have to drink plenty of water. If possible, we have to do the intermittent fasting. And we have to consume more fruits and vegetables. We have to focus on fruits and vegetables. And sometimes we may have to take probiotics. You can easily get in the market. And we have to focus on taking the more fiber diet, and we have to take a deep or enough sleep. Okay, so do not take processed food. Eat good food like fruit, vegetables, fiber diet, protein diet you can take, and you should have the enough sleep and do exercise regularly. So you have to do this exercise regularly, and you can walk, you can run, you can do anything, but you have to do the exercise. There is no shortcut for management of NFLD until and unless you do the exercise. So general measures, as I have already told, you have to abstain from the alcohol, and you have to modify the risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Like you have to control your sugar, you have to check your cholesterol. You have to do like that, okay? And you have to immunize against at least hepatitis B, or some, if possible, hepatitis A as well. So what is the what should be our target to reduce the weight? We have to reduce our weight at least by 5 to 7%. And if there's a proven NASA, a biopsy proven NASA, then we can reduce our by 10%. Okay, if so, we should plan to reduce our weight, and if we can reduce our weight, then only there can be the reversal of this process, and only we can protect our liver. So weight loss is like must to manage the patient with NFL. So what to do if someone has a NAS but without diabetes? So you can try with vitamin E. Dose is 800 international unit. That is 400 in international unit BD you can give. It improves the global histological score. It decreases your aminotransferase level, and because of this antioxidant properties of vitamin E, there is some action, but further trials and further evidence is definitely required. So if someone has the NAS and the diabetes, then you can try the insulin sensitizer like pioglitazone. It can improve the hepatic inflammations. But problem with the pioglitazone is that it can cause edema, it can cause pulmonary edema, it can cause weight gain. Okay, but beware of that side effects, and you can use the pioglitazone. Okay, there are other modalities for the NFALD, like you can try the probiotics. Evidence had suggested you can use the metformin and the hydrostatin, but in the previous days, but these have as no not much use in a proven NAS nowadays. Okay, so these are the treatment for the NAS. So what we have learned today? So these are our reference. So what we have learned today? So non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is a spectrum of non-alcoholic fatty liver, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, and cirrhosis, and sometimes hepatocellular carcinoma. To prove it, to define it, you have to document the fatty liver with the help of the images or biopsy, with no other alternative cause like significant alcohol consumption, hepatitis C infection, or autoimmune hepatitis, or intake of the stereogenic or the fat producing molecule drugs like methotrexate or amiodarone, like that. And the main pathogenic factor is multi-hit hypothesis. There are so many things like the adipocyte inflammation, genetic predisposition, insulin resistance, gut dysbiosis, and the intake of high fat diet. And the most common clinical feature is asymptomatic. Most of them are asymptomatic. And the investigation of choice is the ultrasound for the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And the treatment is, one is you have to reduce your weight by taking the proper diet and doing the adequate amount of exercise and abstaining from the alcohol. And the molecules that is used in a patient with NFLD is vitamin E and pioglitazone. That's all for today. I think we have learned something about the NFALD. It's a highly complex topic, and we'll discuss in coming future. For today, goodbye, namaste.